Everybody, PTPOP here. All four lobes of my brain securely bound behind my back. And welcome to another episode of Call Center Survivor. Today I'm going to discuss a comment that one of my subscribers made about my new documentary, Road to Forgiveness. And I'm going to discuss how it applies to working in a call center. Thanks. See you soon.
Would you like fries with that?
I've been real busy lately working on a new documentary. And it's an autobiographical film that talks about my experiences as a kid being raised by two alcoholic parents. And I wanted to make this film because there's a lot of people in the world who were raised in the same way I was. And you're told at a very young age you're not supposed to talk about this. Because if your parents tell you this, they'll say, hey, don't talk about what's going on at home. We don't want anybody to know. You don't want to embarrass the family, do you? Things like that will be said. And it's really a bizarre way to tell a child not to tell anybody outside the house that both your parents or one of your parents are an addict or an alcoholic. And if you're not told directly not to speak about it, it's just understood. I mean, you don't want to talk to anybody outside the family about this. Trust me. If in elementary or junior high or high school, people came up to me and made fun of me because my dad was the town drunk and we were poor, it would have probably scarred me for life. But my film is out. It's available on YouTube. It's just a little over an hour long. It's free of charge. And I had a great time making it, but it was also a lot of, it was an upheaval of, it was emotionally taxing, and it was a huge emotional upheaval to go through all these memories and discuss things about my parents and what I lived through. And I left a lot of things out. I mean, I didn't want to go on and on about all the things I experienced. I mean, I left the part out where the federal agent showed up at our front door looking for my dad because he was passing bad checks in a mafia-owned store in Cleveland, or mafia-owned bar. That was fun. So there were certain things that I didn't put in. I had to choose what I felt was the best to convey the story. But there's a lot of people out there that live and have lived through this, the same things I lived through. Some people went through worse things. Some people went through not so bad things. But either way, it scars you. I mean, addiction spares no one. And here's the thumbnail for my film. This is on YouTube. And this is, it's cut off here. This is on YouTube. I'll play a little segment of the film for you. Let's see if we can get to the part about the Beatles. Hey, somebody's calling me. Hold on a second, brother. Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Paula from ADT on a recorded line. We received your online request for information to protect your business.
Oh, hey, Paula. I'm in the middle of a meeting. Can I call you? Can you hear me? Hello?
Hello, Peter.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Do you currently have active security in the business now that you're paying for each month?
Can you hear me? Are you there? Hello?
Hello, Peter.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Do you currently have any security in the business?
Oh my God. Wow, so that was an exciting call from a call center telesales person. How appropriate, from ADT. Can you hear me? Hello, Peter? Can you hear me? Can I, Peter? I love it. But this is. Let me play a little segment of the film here. I don't think you can hear the sound in this. I'm not certain. It's supposed to be on. Well, this is just a segment of my film where I talk about how the Beatles saved me and they were my saviors during this time as a kid. growing up as an alcoholic with alcoholic parents. But, you know, what I want to talk about today is one of my subscribers, David Leifer. I think his name is Leifer. I always think L-E-I, I think that's pronounced I. Leifer. It's one of my subscribers. Thanks for watching my videos, David, and thanks for your message. David says on my documentary, he made a comment on my documentary, Road to Forgiveness. He says, "Hi, Pete. I wonder if working in call centers has any relation to this documentary. Possibly people that have been through different struggles are more likely to put up with that treatment at a job. I feel like it was that way for me until I left because I was comfortable enough to leave and find something better." And I think David is spot on, bullseye with that. And I know from personal experience that I have an ability in each of us who grew up in dysfunctional families where our parents are addicts. We will go into a situation and do a couple of different things when we find something we don't like. And I can't speak for everybody, but I'll just speak for myself. I'll either go to a situation and try to change it because I don't think it's right the way it's going on, or you think it's going to get better. And that's what I do with my parents. I kept thinking, if I could just talk to my dad enough, if I could just throw the right words at him, if I could just come up with the right combination of words, that a light would go off in his head and he'd go, "You know what? I never thought about that. I think I'm going to stop drinking now, Pete, because you said don't drink anymore, Dad. And you know what? I never thought of that. I think I'm just going to stop drinking." And when I was a child, I thought it was that simple. But the same type of thinking, I took that same type of thinking into the corporate world when I worked in these call centers. So I kept going. It's, the call centers for me were like a relationship. And I kept trying to find the right relationship for me as a career move. So you go into one bad relationship. It's like a bunch of bad relationships. So as a kid, you're raised to think that, they're going to change. Eventually, I thought if I couldn't throw the right words at my dad, then eventually he's just going to change. He's going to sober up and it's going to get better. My mother got sober. She got sober in 1975. And she changed her life, and she changed my life, and she gave me a good life. She gave me a good, stable life with what she had to work with. And that's something that I thought my dad would do eventually. But as far as I know, I don't know if my dad ever got sober. So you go into these jobs that are dysfunctional and abusive, like call center work, and you think, it's going to get better, it's going to get better, it's going to get better, or I can change it. If I just sit down with the director, if I sit down with my manager and say, "Hey, did you ever think about it like this?" They're going to go, "You know what, Pete? I think you're right. I think I'm going to get off your back about your calls, and I think you're a valuable employee for bringing that up to me." I really thought people would think that. And it's not the way it works, but when you're raised in this environment as a kid, you take this toxic thinking into your relationships, both romantic relationships, platonic relationships, and business relationships, and it affects everything you think, say, and do. It does. It did with me. So to draw a parallel between my upbringing as a kid who was raised in a dysfunctional, addicted family, I would go to these call centers and I would think, wow. Like the first big call center I worked at, major one, was, it was called Bank One, and Bank One became Chase. So we'll call it Chase. Chase is still around. So I worked for Chase, and I thought, wow, I get to work for Chase. It's such a big company. It's going to be so much fun. They're going to treat me so good. And I got in there, and the training was long. It was about 6 weeks of training, longer than usual. But it was so boring. And I kept thinking, well, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And I thought, well, once I get out on the floor and start taking calls, it's going to get better. Just get me on the phones, let me go. So I get out there, and my supervisor was nuts. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. She was very nervous and would walk around and just like, oh, like that. She was constantly, and she'd break into calls live on the phone. And I thought, there's something wrong here. This lady isn't right. This isn't what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to break into a live conversation with me and a customer and ridicule me in front of the customer. There's something wrong here. But I thought, well, It'll get better. But I quit there and I went to another company. And my next call center job was Wells Fargo. And at Wells Fargo, I thought, wow, I get to work for Wells Fargo, one of these huge banks. It's going to be great here. It's going to be better, and it's going to get better. And it's a big company in the Southwest, and everybody knows Wells Fargo. And I went in there, and training there was boring too. It was still about a month, something like that. They gave you more training than typical. It was boring, but it was, I know banking, so I kind of got through it better. But I got on the floor, and the people on the floor around me were really dysfunctional. And the managers were dysfunctional. Some of the people sitting near me were really, really odd. And I thought, well, I can. Oh, I'm out of focus. Is that better, everyone? You don't want to miss my smiling face. But I kept thinking, it's got to get better. It's going to get better. There's no way, And I kept thinking, well, and I would change. I'd have one supervisor. I had one supervisor who was. Let me get this microphone out of the way. Apparently, the camera thinks that it needs to focus on the microphone. So we shall tighten that up there. I'm not going to edit this stuff out, but so I had this one supervisor, and I have a tendency to get confused pretty easily. And I would go up to her and ask her questions. So one time I went, and she went, like that to me, like really exaggerated, mocking me. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. But I knew it wasn't good, and I was determined to make the most of it. I ended up leaving there, and I went back to school. I finished school and went back to another. I didn't finish school. The economy crashed, and my wife was losing her job, so I had to take a job. I took a job at Verizon Wireless Call Center, and that was horrible. Verizon was atrocious. Their training was atrocious. The managers on the floor were atrocious, and I kept thinking, well, if I go to a bigger, better company, hey, I know telecom. It's got to be good here. And the training was just excruciating. It was like 8 weeks of training, and I spent like 2 weeks talking about the billing system, and I was losing it. I was absolutely I couldn't think about the billing system anymore. It was just, they talked about it, and it was this guy that would, he'd pick up the training manual, and he'd be like, okay, today we're going to talk about billing. This is day 3 of a 2-week course. If you need some coffee, get some now. Okay, the billing system, and it was horrible. But I think, it's going to get better. And to make a long story short, what these call centers were to me were kind of like relationships, and I kept breaking up with one company and going to another company thinking it's going to get better, and I'd break up with that person or that company and go to another company thinking that was going to get better. But in the meantime, I wasn't realizing at the time that I was broken as a person, and that I was attracted to dysfunctional companies and dysfunctional jobs. And it led me down this errant path of pain, and these call center jobs undermined my confidence. It just really flattened me as a person. But a lot of that comes from being a kid and thinking, well, I can change things. I went into Verizon and tried to change things. I went into Wells Fargo. One of my supervisors was racist, openly racist, and I went to HR about it. And all they did was try to blackball me. They said, well, we don't have any documented proof that he's done anything wrong, so I don't know what you want us to tell you. So I kept going to these companies, and I think a lot of people that work in these call centers, and I don't know this for a fact because I've never done any research on it, but I think a lot of us are very dysfunctional people. And you go into these relationships with these companies, much like you go into a relationship with a person, thinking, well, they're going to treat me good. And you have somewhat healthy expectations, but they're based off of unrealistic life, dysfunctional foundation of life. So you don't know what's healthy. You don't know what it is to be treated good. So a lot of people stay because all they know is how they've been abused, and they don't mind the abuse. Some of us, like myself, I know in my heart that this isn't right. It's not healthy. I don't feel good. I shouldn't have to walk out of work with chest pains every day. But I did, and I kept going back. And it's much like going back to an abusive girlfriend or boyfriend or abusive spouse, and you don't know any better. That's all you saw your parents go through. So this is what you're going to go through. So what I'm saying is that everything you experienced as a kid in a dysfunctional family carries over into your personal life and your business life. And it shows up in these call centers because these call centers use and abuse you. They just completely treat you like crap. And those that survive somehow can navigate those murky, muddy, abusive waters and stay afloat. And I don't know, I can't say that these people all grew up in dysfunctional, addictive families, but I would imagine that if you can survive in a situation like that, you must have some experience at it. And I think that's what I did. I would go from one company to the next thinking, well, it's got to get better. It's got to get better, And it never did. It didn't matter what industry I was in call centers. It didn't matter if it was insurance or cable TV or telecom or Verizon Wireless, or if it was banking. It didn't matter if it was graphic design. They were all these weird, twisted, dysfunctional, dystopian societies, that little microcosms of society that treated you like crap and expected all these things from you. So, to get back to what David said, he said possibly people that have been through different struggles are more likely to put up with that treatment at a job. And that, I believe that. And that's what I'm saying. If you've been through dysfunction in your life and abuse in your life, you're more likely to take it at work. You're more likely to be the whipping boy or girl. You're more likely to put up with the abuse because that's all you know. You don't know what's healthy. I know what's healthy, but I sometimes gravitate towards the unhealthy because that's where I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable where it's chaotic. And if things aren't chaotic, my wife sees it all the time. She's very calm and level-headed. She's very like, everything's like this. Everything's just real plastic. But with me, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What about it? The wind blew and the leaves are coming. Are the leaves going to, entomb the house? It's autumn. The leaves are going to entomb the house. But, I'm exaggerating quite a bit. I've never had a fear of the leaves entombing my house. And I think a lot of us, we go to these call centers because, number one, they quote, wine and dine you in the interview. And they tell you it's a great place. It's fun. It's a rock and roll atmosphere. Everybody loves you here. We're there to help you succeed. You're gonna get promoted within 6 months to a year. You can go anywhere you want. If you want to work in HR, you can go to HR. If you want to go work in marketing, you can do it right from this. This is the gateway to everything you could ever want in the corporate world. And it's just like the abusive parent or the abusive spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend that tells you, hey, I love you, man. I know I hit you last night, but I love you. Don't leave. I love you. And then you believe them. You're like, oh, okay. All right, Dad. You're not going to hit me anymore? All right, if you say so, I'm going to stick around, And that's just what's like in these call centers. They tell you that they love you. They tell you that they need you. They tell you that, you're doing great when they want you to stay. If you threaten to leave, I've threatened to leave. Oh, no, please don't go. Like the lady at Chase, my crazy supervisor, when I said, well, I'm going to leave, I'm going to another company. She was like, no, you can't go. Please don't go. She almost begged me to stay. And she ran to HR and said, Pete's leaving. We can't have him leave. I'm like, what is wrong with this lady? They've got like 1,000 reps on the floor. This Chase Bank, this was in Phoenix. Chase had this massive call center of at least 500 call center reps. I'd never seen anything like it. It was my first major corporate call center. But anyway, I digress. It's a strange situation because if you don't know what healthy is, you keep navigating towards the unhealthy until you finally start to get your feet underneath you and you start to get some self-confidence and you get a bit of a backbone and you realize, hey, I don't need to take this anymore. And that's why I stopped working in call centers. I went, you know what? I have tried this over and over and over again. It's like beating your head against a cinder block wall. It's wham. Oh, no, that doesn't feel good. Maybe I'll try this cinder block wall. Boom. Oh, no, that one doesn't hurt. That hurt, but this wall. No, that still hurts. That hurts. It's never going to get better in a call center. There are people, as we all know, that do succeed somehow, and they get promoted and they end up in Q&A or they end up becoming a manager or a director or something. But all the directors I met in every call center were brought in from outside the company. Most of them were recruited from other banks or other places. So the parallel that David brings up in his comment is very valid. And thank you for the comment, David. And I urge each of you to do a little bit of self-reflection if you're working in a call center to see maybe if there's some reason that you feel more comfortable in the chaos of a call center because of how you're raised. I'm not saying that is the case, but it's a possibility that you may gravitate towards the chaos of abusive customers, abusive managers, abusive employees, coworkers, because that's all you've known your whole life is abuse. Whether it's at the hands of an addict or not, does not matter. And I'm not putting down the people. I've worked alongside some very nice people in the call centers, but most of us, myself included, like I dress real nice, but on the inside, I'm just like shattered glass. I'm just like a bunch of bumblebees under my skin. It's just like I'm constantly anxious. And so, but I covered up well. I'm like my dad. My dad was very well put together. He had his hair, done nicely. He always had a pressed shirt and a tie, nice slacks. He was a nice looking guy. And he presented himself well. So the last thing you would think when you saw him was, oh, there's a drunk. So I mask it behind dressing nice and keeping shaven and stuff. But on the inside, I'm a wreck. And a lot of the people around me were tragic cases just like me. There was a lady who worked with me at Wells Fargo. I have no idea. I don't remember her name now. But she always wore sweatpants, and she smelled bad. She smelled really bad, and she had kind of a beard, and she was female. And she just was kind of a disheveled, dirty woman, but she was one of the most successful people on the phone. I just look at her and say, boy, she's not corporate at all. She's not a corporate person, but she has a lot of issues. She would talk about her ex-husband and this horrible guy that would beat her and stuff. We'd talk in the break room, and there were a couple other people there. Everybody there was from like this really weird. There was a woman there that was a model, she was trying to be a fashion model, and she was obviously sick with bulimia or anorexia. She was really skinny. An attractive woman, but there was something bad going on there. There was another lady that she claimed her husband was a doctor, and she was very pretty, but she would always get these skin treatments where they burn a layer of skin off her face, and she was all weird. There was a girl at one of the banks I worked at here in Cleveland that she always wore the gladiator sandals to work. Like, and not that this is dysfunctional, but it's kind of an odd thing to wear to a corporate world where there were sandals with like a heel about this high, and the leather straps went up her leg and tied at her knee. And it's just kind of, well, why are you wearing that to work? I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm all into people and their alternative lifestyles, but there's a certain decorum you have to bring to the work. And so my point is you're going to meet all kinds of people in these call centers that seem to have all kinds of dysfunction. And that's not being mean. That's not being judgmental. It's a fact. The things you see in these corporate videos promoting the call centers is total bullshit. I have never worked in a call center where the people were all young, all attractive, all smiling, all happy. It's all bullshit to try to make you think that's the way it's going to be. I don't think I even talked about the American Greetings call center I worked in for like 2 weeks. I did another video a couple years ago. Oh, it was horrible. It was horrible. The people, I got to do a side-by-side with a guy who was already in the call center and had worked there for like a year or something, allegedly a year. And, you take a call, and then in between calls, he'd say these really weird philosophical things to me, like, hey, man, what do you think about, Rembrandt's interpretation of the lily pads, I think Bob Dylan is really the Christ of all writers. And he was serious. He wasn't just trying to freak me out. I was just like, okay, dude, whatever. Can we take another call, please? So the point being is that David's comment on my video, on my new movie, Road to Forgiveness, is bullseye. It's spot on. And I think a lot of us that work in call centers do so because we like the chaos. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, we seem to thrive in a chaotic, dysfunctional environment because that's how we are raised. And we keep, it perpetuates until we stop it, until you do the Susan Powter thing. Susan Powter is a self-help author from the 80s or the 90s, stop the madness type of thing. And you've got to break that cycle. And you got to find what you're good at. I'm good at art. Do I make a lot of money at it? No. But it's my wheelhouse. What that means, I don't know. I don't even know what is real anymore, because honestly, to strive to work in a call center is kind of to work in the corporate world seems futile to me. Like you waste your whole life, anywhere from 30 to 60 years of your life, sitting at a desk working for some guy on an ivory tower somewhere, drinking brandy on a yacht with a bunch of hookers, and you sit there on a hamster wheel going nowhere, and they throw you a couple of bones with a couple of raises, and you get some vacation, and you waste your whole life when you could have been pursuing what you were meant to be. That seems dysfunctional to me. So what's functional? If the corporate world is dysfunctional and most of us are dysfunctional, what is real? That's what I don't know. It seems like everything they teach us to chase after in this world is a little bit odd and off. It doesn't seem to be humane. Most of it seems to be inhumane. They get us chasing after things, and the dysfunction in me, you dangle a carrot in front of me, and let me try to get that carrot. And you never grab that carrot, and I waste 20 years of my life in the corporate world when I should have been an art teacher. I don't think I would have been successful as an art teacher because I'm not fond of children. I'm not fond of little bastards screaming and yelling and throwing paint, and I experienced that at a couple of summer camps where I taught arts and crafts when I was a young kid, 18, 19 years old. These little bastards tore the place apart. And I despised it. I dreaded it. It was horrible, and I didn't want to do it. And I got some satisfaction when the kids liked it, and they liked me. But outside of that, forget it. And I thought, I'm not doing this in a high school or junior high school where the kids are little fucking bastards. And then anyway. So there you have it. Watch my documentary, Road to Forgiveness. Let's bring it up again here. Get my laptop to fire back up here because everything goes to sleep. Everything goes to sleep. I go to sleep, you go to sleep. I scream, you scream. We all scream for ice cream. Road to Forgiveness. Come on up here. Well, I'll bring up I'll just bring up the little. This is my editing page. Road to Forgiveness. Addiction spares no one. There we go. Road to Forgiveness. Addiction Spares No One, a documentary by Peter Tompkins. You know, it's free. It's an hour of your life. If you or you know someone who's raised in a dysfunctional environment, I made this video to try to help people. So watch it. Let me know if you like it. And have a great day. PTPOP, I'm signing off. Hang in there. Bye.
Would you like fries with that? Would you like fries with that?